And while they're getting that set up, if Shimi, Nina, Moshe, and Mehdi could all put yourselves on mute.
I have all my paperwork.
And Joanne, we do have quorum to open the hearing when you're ready to proceed.
Mr. Friedman, just let me know when you're all ready and then I'll start the proceedings.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then I am ready, and okay, first of all, I would like to thank the board for this opportunity to present this rather unique school.
But hold on, please, Mr. Friedman, because the hearing has to be officially opened. I'm the designated interrupter. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Okay. So I'll introduce you. Thank you, sir. You can go ahead and start streaming the hearing. All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Joanne Brown. I'm the chair of Community Board 14. This public hearing is called to order at 6:38 p.m. on Thursday, November 9th, 2021 via Webex. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony with respect to a variance application to the Board of Standards and Appeals 2021-50-BZ 450 Lawrence Avenue, Block 5422, Lot 10. A variance application has been filed with the Board of Standards and Appeal, BSA, pursuant to Section 72-21 of the Zoning Resolution of the City of New York, as amended, to allow for the construction of a new 6-story school, yeshiva, for autistic students within an R5 Ocean Parkway, M1-1 Ocean Parkway zoning district. If you wish to testify on this issue, please use the Webex raise hand function to speak or email your comments and questions to info@cb14brooklyn.com. Comments received during the hearing will be read aloud for the record. Please state clearly for the record your name, address, and organization prior to giving testimony. The first speaker will be Moshe Friedman, PE representative for the applicant. Please go ahead, Mr. Friedman.
Good evening. I would like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to present this rather unique school variance to the board, to the local community. We have a team here. We have the owner, the people who are running the school. We have a traffic expert online, and ourselves and a program expert, which you received a copy of the program. It's a 200-page, and if you have a little bit of insomnia, you can go through it at night. This site, the building was originally approved many years ago. I have 2008 and 2016 for practically the same size building, school. The community board approved it and the board approved it. It was a school, 6-story, same footprint for 700 students. The current school is only for 150 students because autistic children need more room and they have all types of therapies. So, but what I would like to do is call on Rabbi Meisels to give you a little bit history of the school so that you can understand what's happening over here, if that's all right.
Yes, of course.
Rabbi Meisels, please.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. And I want to thank the community board for the opportunity. So my name is Mordechai Meisels. I'm the founder and the director of Hadron Academy. I'm a New York State certified special educator and a New York State licensed behavior analyst. I always like to say that parents actually founded the school. The school is geared towards students with high functioning autism. Students with high functioning autism are most commonly misunderstood probably from the most misunderstood population in special education and in the world of special needs. Some of them even look typical. Some of them are quite brilliant, but their deficits are nuanced. Nevertheless, they need a lot of intervention and help and support to be able to be functional members of our society and to be able to have a bright future and potential. So parents actually reached out to me in 2013 and 2014, really begging and asking if we can put together a school. So I jumped into it, and we founded Hadron Academy, which is a very multi-disciplinary school, focusing on all different areas of development, starting from academics, going through all different academic domains, social emotional learning, behavioral management, vocational training, a strong emphasis on parental involvement and engagement, and all while paying extra attention to the cultural sensitivities, preserving our students' identity. The need is really growing. Just this month, the CDC released the updated statistics on the prevalence of autism, which is growing at really rapid rates. And we are having an impact not only on the students and our graduates, but we're also having an impact on the entire family. Just last night we had a PTA. I met with so many parents, and the feedback that we're getting from parents is not just about the impact we're having on their child, but the ripple effects that it has on the entire family. Currently, we're bursting at our seams, and we're turning away many students due to space constraints. And we're looking forward to be able to expand and be able to service additional students and have an impact on additional students, additional families, and fill a real void in the community. We appreciate the community board's the opportunity. We appreciate the community board's we appreciate the community support, and most especially our neighbor support with this very special project. Thank you.
I would just like to add from the previous approval of this board and the Board of Standards and Appeals, we have many less students. We're going down from 700 to 150. So most of the students will come by public transportation. This is part of the mission of Hadron Academy, is to teach these children how to be adults, how to navigate the world, how to navigate getting places. So there's only for the youngest children, so there will be one bus per day only, as opposed to the previous approval, which had 700 children, which were all bused.
Thank you very much. We have a very inquisitive board, and I know that they would want to know a little bit more about what exactly you're at, because 2008 to 2016, the board has changed somewhat. I think they'd want to know a little bit more about what the variance entails. I see you have plans on the screen. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
No problem. We have over here a very unique lot. The lot is bisected by an R5 zone and an M1 zone. As of right, you really couldn't build anything on this lot because of the different requirements for each zone, being both in the Ocean Parkway district. The R5 zone, which is you are limited to residential zoning, and in the M1 zone, you couldn't even build two separate buildings because it's bisected at an angle. So what we have is a very unique lot. And if you look at the pages, we have the full zoning calculations for each side of the lot. In this, I will give a little overview of the building. In the cellar, they have a multi-purpose. In the sub-cellar, it's in order not to go up higher and keep the same footprint as the previous grant, they went down. So there's a multi-purpose room and a gym in the cellar. In the subcellar, in the cellar, you have the dining rooms. And then they have a synagogue because the children pray over here, and Judaic library, and they have the separate junior high school entrance, which is for grade 6 through 9, and the high school entrance is 10 to 12. But that's really a misnomer, because the children over here are really from about 11 years old to 21 years old. Because they're autistic, they don't follow the same pattern as the regular school. And so the children age out at 21 years old. On the second floor, you have classrooms, and also on the third floor. And again, we cannot put too many children in the same classroom. They need space, these autistic children. So the classrooms, there are many classrooms with less students in them. And then there are therapies, because all these children and young adults need therapies. And then we have on the 5th floor, the labs, art therapy, student lounge, computer room. And on the 6th floor, again, is the offices for all the therapists, because they have multiple therapists over here. So it's a rather unique.
William Schwartz has left the meeting.
And hopefully we're trying to get a nice facade, something that will be unusual and be asset to the neighborhood. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll go ahead and I'll open up the floor to board members. I'd like to spend perhaps 10 minutes with questions from board members, and then I'd like to move on to the members of the public that have joined us. I don't want to lose their attention to this meeting. And then if we have time at the end, I'll circle back to the board if they have additional questions. The first hand that I see up is from Michelle Brunson. Go ahead, board member Michelle Brunson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm looking at the plans for the building. Although you say you have 150 students, what would be the C of O for the building? How many students could it hold?
150.
Just that?
That's what we are doing. I mean, if they can't even sell this, you have to realize they can't sell this building to another school without going back to the board. So we are limiting it to the population that we have.
I understand you're limiting it to 150. I'm asking, what is the capacity of the building? What would the C of O read? How many students could it house?
150. That's what we're saying. Because
Okay.
we put into the application how many students we're going to have. If you're thinking that this building can hold more, yes, it can hold more, but that's not, it can't without going back to the Board of Standards and Appeals, because in order to sell a building that's under the board's jurisdiction, they have to go back and redo the variance and come back to you.
I'm asking the question that I'm asking because you said you have 150 students. I'm asking, how many students can the building hold? Do you plan to extend your program? Because I am the parent of an autistic child. So I'm asking for community-wise as well as personal.
The school only has 50 students at the moment. The max capacity that we're going for is 150 students.
And the building structure itself, how many people will it hold?
100 with staff?
The C of O for the building.
I'm going to ask Rabbi Meisels that maybe he can answer that.
Thank you.
Rabbi Meisels?
I'm not exactly sure how much the total staff for the 150 we have. I believe we have it in the programmatic needs that we put together, but I don't know offhand how many staff members it would be for 150.
Okay, thank you.
Next question from board member Nina Sebgier.
Good evening. My name is Nina Savgir, and I actually also originally had a degree in special ed. So this definitely interests me. My concern, actually, most of the questions that you've or the information that you've given has been very, very helpful. What about outdoor space? I guess that's my question. Is there outdoor space involved in this lot for the students to get outside? And what about parking? I guess that's a second issue.
Okay. There are 2 outdoor spaces, one on the roof of the 6th floor and one on the roof of the 1st floor.
Okay.
Okay. And there parking, this is no, there is no parking, there's no required parking, and people are going to come by public transportation.
Okay.
Not expected.
That you'll encourage that, because I know that that area, the parking is pretty tight.
Correct. It's very tight and it doesn't pay. You know, you bring a car, you don't have where to park. You don't bring your car again. I mean, I know from myself. So people, and it's right next to the train. It's next to public transportation. It's a unique location.
Okay, thank you.
Next question is from board member Barden Fasson.
Thanks, Joanne. I think I read over some notes from the original proposal for the first building back in like 07 or so. And the comments from the community had revolved around, I guess, a lot of which we've already touched upon, which is traffic and parking. I think the fact that the student body is reducing from 700 to 150 will significantly ameliorate those issues. But I think there was some also concern from neighbors regarding the building itself and its bulk and its effect on the surrounding neighborhood. So are the dimensions of the building precisely the same as from the original plan? And if anything has changed, and what kind of responses have you had from neighbors, or are any neighbors here to speak? I would just be interested. Thanks.
The dimensions are practically the same. I think there's 150 square feet of difference between the 2 applications. This one's a little bit bigger, 150 square feet, which percentage-wise is minuscule. The building is the same. We left the side yard on the residential side and went up to the lot line on the manufacturing side.
Okay, and have you received any feedback from neighbors yet on the plan?
We have not.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question is from board member Joe Dweck.
You. My question is regarding the staffing. And if you don't have any idea how much staffing is going to be required, then I think you should come back to us when you do know it.
127. It's in the programmatic report.
127 staff?
Yes.
And you expect none of them to come by car?
Let's get our traffic map.
Well, I can have the traffic. Hiram or Meta? Mehdi? We have.
This is Manny Amjadi. I'm the traffic expert. Out of a student body and also staff, more than 95% of them, they come by either subway, New York City Transit bus, one school bus that we have, mostly by walking, and is another private bus company that is a shuttle between Williamsburg and Borough Hall, and they have a specific stops. Most of the people come, students and staff, they come by that shuttle. But that shuttle doesn't come close to.
Excuse me, you have 127 staff for 150 people. And you're expecting 95% of those staff to come by public transportation. Is that correct?
Join the meeting.
That's right. This is based on a survey that we have done recently.
Really? This survey, how was it done, please?
We have a questionnaire that we distributed to the school, and then they provided with the response to it, how it's happening at this current school, not at this location, but the location that they have right now with 50 students. And this survey is based on that information. The only difference is that on the new school has 60 more. Well, they have 3 other classes, grades 6 through 8, that the current school doesn't have. That's the only difference. And those students, they all come by bus, one bus.
But however, you said at this point, I hate to belabor a point, but I'm not getting a straight answer.
All right.
That you're going from 50 students to 150 students.
Yes.
I don't know how many current staff you have, but you're going to 127 staff.
Yeah.
And what is your basis? What kind of survey did you have of this 127 staff that they're going to come by public transportation, which might not be as well served in the Lawrence Avenue as the current location? How did you ameliorate that?
This is based on the survey. We only add up 127. We only have 4 people that either drop off or drive to school from their staff. And then about 7 cars that they dropping off the students at the school.
That you can't get down Lawrence Avenue even with people being dropped off?
Sorry, say it again. Come again.
Are you aware that cars cannot get down Lawrence Avenue even to drop off people?
Well, again, that's based on the survey.
I think it's important to note that there's an existing use on the site that would currently generates far more traffic and truck deliveries than what the school is going to generate in the future. And maybe somebody from the project team is there to discuss what's existing on the site now and all the traffic it generates on Lawrence Avenue.
Repeat, are you aware that cars cannot get down that street even to drop off people?
Hiram?
Well, if we subtract the deliveries for current site, that would leave us some room for the future drop-off and pickups.
I'm not talking about truck deliveries. You have at this point in that street, buses with developmentally challenged people who are navigating that street in wheelchairs. They're navigating the wheelchairs with the breath only. You cannot accept cars getting down that street. It is an impossibility. I'm not asking you about trucks delivering or not delivering, but just trying to get down that street. If you know it, it's an impossibility. Whoever did a traffic study for that street, we've had traffic studies for that street, and we have seen them before, professionally done by the city, and it is extremely, it's not compatible, period.
Well, the existing condition is not, this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about our project, how many people gonna drive, or how many people are gonna use the drop off. But we will look into it when we get back to you on the current condition.
Well, it is absolutely incompatible with that street to have that kind of traffic additional. It's impossible. And if you did a study of that, you would have seen that.
Thank you, Joe. I want to move on to Gail Smith, because we just have another minute or two of board questions, and then I want to hear from the public. Next question is from board member Gail Smith, followed by District Manager Sean Campbell.
All right. Thank you. It had been mentioned earlier in your presentation that due to the space requirements for autistic children, that you now will also be using the subcellar for learning activities, etc. My question is, does this subcellar meet all of the safety requirements, like for egress, the ADA requirements, etc.?
100%.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question from District Manager Sean Campbell.
Hi, thank you. Just to sort of piggyback on a few points that were made and try to drill down a little bit. First of all, if the bus that is dropping off students could refrain from using the part of Lawrence that is east of Seton, that would mitigate some of the concerns expressed by Joe Dweck. So a Seton to Lawrence route or drop off on McDonald should be seriously considered should this be approved by this board and BSA. And then secondly, and also along similar lines, do you anticipate requesting DOT parking restrictions along the school, which is common with all schools? And with schools serving your community, it's often a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. request. Is there any do you anticipate requesting that on Lawrence or McDonald Avenue?
Yes, on Lawrence, we already requested parking regulation for the 7 to 7 p.m. No standing 7 to 7 p.m.
For the entire length of the school
That's
building
right. For
facade?
the school frontage, yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Sean. Just a little housekeeping. If board members don't have any questions, please lower your hands. So when I circle back, I know you have another question. At this time, I'm going to move on to our pre-registered speakers from the public. The first pre-registered speaker is Miriam Schwartz. Ms. Schwartz, are you on the line? Would you like to speak at this time?
Yes, I'm Miriam Schwartz. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I live on 95 Lawrence Avenue. I'm living on the block for 36 years. I certainly know the history of this block. Number one, parking is impossible. It's a crime to take away one more space. Let me tell you an incident I had a few years ago with another school in the area, where the teacher says, I said, please don't park here. Alternate street parking is in a few minutes. We got to clean the street. The sanitation on this block is a disaster. We put another school on, it's going to get even worse. Sanitation does not want to clean here because we're also right by the police station. We're dealing with the police problems too. And what happened was the teacher says, no, I'll be right out in a couple of minutes. An hour later, her car was still there. She went in to take care of what she had to do in the school. Guess what? All the 127 staff, I don't care what Mr. Friedman says. There's no way they're not coming on this block looking for parking. We have the police. We have one school. We have another school already ready to open up on Seton and Webster. We have a grocery on the corner. We have people coming by from the train. I know there's no parking, but sometimes they fit in here also. You cannot get the buses down here. You cannot do anything down here. Forget about the infrastructure that's not good. Even the water pressure went way down because of all the other buildings that have gone up in the last 10 years. The place is a wreck. This place is a wreck. The other question I have is, do you plan to use this as a social hall, this building?
No.
Thank God.
The board, both the board and the community board have in the resolution that from the past one, and we plan also no social hall.
Thank you. But the parking is a tremendous issue. The safety of our kids is a tremendous issue here with all. And don't say that the company that's here with the trucks is doing a big part of blocking. They maybe have one truck a day and they pull up on the sidewalk. They're not blocking anyone. It's not its constant thing. They're a small little company. They don't have the volume that you're going to bring in with your school.
As I said before, we have surveyed current school, and based on those information, more than 95% of the student and staff, they come by public transit. Now, that shuttle
Yes.
that I mentioned before, that's a very common shuttle in the area that goes from that serves people in Borough Hall and Williamsburg. Most of the student comes from Borough Hall and Williamsburg, and they all come and they get on the shuttle, and that shuttle doesn't come close to Lawrence Avenue. Basically, they're all coming by after they get off on 18th Avenue and 49th Street. That's the last stop. They can walk to the school, and most of this traffic is by foot. If you bring any other kind of use in this site, they're gonna have some traffic, cars coming in, going to the if it's a residential, you're gonna have a person to have a car or two cars. We are not adding to park. We are not requesting any parking, and most of the staff, they get only a few of them that they might come by car. They're gonna get dropped off, or they can use the if they see that there's no parking. First of all, you can park based on the city guidelines. You can go a quarter of a mile of the site and park, and it's not going to be on Lawrence Avenue, but most of the staff, they either get off and drop off, or they use the taxi service and all that.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. I just wanted to recognize that Senator Simcha Felder is on this call. Senator Felder, did you have something to say to this body at this time?
I do, but I don't want to. I don't want to bump anyone. I'd like to wait till it's my turn, and since I was the last one on, I think I'll wait till be the last one to speak, with your permission.
Thank you, sir. I have just one other person in front of you. That would be Mr. Isaac Steinberg. And once Mr. Steinberg speaks, and then I would be happy to welcome you back.
Thank you.
Mr. Steinberg, are you on the call? Would you like to address this body? Go ahead, Senator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't live on Lawrence, but I do live on Parkville, and I've been living on Parkville Avenue, which is right around the corner, for about the same amount of time that Mrs. Schwartz has been living on Lawrence Avenue. I would like to just, in no specific order, only because I don't have it in order in my brain. So I just wanted to make a few points. So there was a proposal for a school a number of years ago. I'm sorry I got onto the meeting late, so you may have discussed this already. But this is not the first time that there's been a proposal for the school. And I would just mention, in reference to the things that I heard when I got on late, is that I feel strongly that the parking, the non-parking, whatever you want to do, the proposal at that time for the school that was proposed was specifically that everything would come, including the entrance, on McDonald Avenue itself, not on Lawrence Avenue, and that way that would sort of force the parking, if any, if any. I know you've mentioned that there are no buses, and I'm not questioning your honesty. I'm just suggesting that if the entrances to the building, if the entranceways or the main entranceways and any parking, you mentioned that you made a request for non-parking, from 7 to 7 in front of the building on Lawrence. And I would agree with Mrs. Schwartz that that's not appropriate. If you want to do any non-parking, and if any, it should be on McDonald. And I know it won't look as nice. It certainly won't look as nice. Lawrence Avenue is much nicer than McDonald Avenue, but if the entrance, at least if the main entranceway to the building would be on McDonald, you automatically are forcing some of the issues that that have been mentioned, about the problems on Lawrence, you're forcing them onto McDonald. Though some of you may not be aware, but I'm sure Sean is aware, that years ago, Lawrence Avenue was in the other direction. And really, that is really what needs to be done, because from 18th Avenue, the next time you can get to the Ocean Parkway is on Forster, and anyone who lives in the neighborhood knows that the cops and anyone else who tries to get to Ocean Parkway has difficulty getting there because you have to go all the way down to Forster. So I would say that's a separate issue. That's not, Mr. Friedman is probably, in my mind, one of the best, if not the best architect that certainly in Brooklyn, but he does not have the power to change direction of the streets yet. I wish he did. We would be in much better shape. But given the direction that it is, at a minimum, if we had whatever traffic possible or whatever coming to the on McDonald, that would be a big help. Having said that, I want to be on record as stating that I am in full support to the school's proposal, even if it winds up being the way it is. And the reason I say that is on the record that I have spent the last 8 years of my life advocating for children with special education needs. And when it comes to children with special education needs, in my mind, I cannot help it. One of my grandchildren is a special needs student, not in New York. He's not going to Hadron. He's in New Jersey. And as a result of having a grandchild with special needs, it has educated me, to say the least. So if there, I just want to make it clear that without taking up more of your time, that if anyone says, what did Felder say? Is he in support or not?
I think that, I'm sorry, but there is a 3-minute time limit. I'm not sure if the chair wants me to call time. If not, be quiet.
Should I shut up?
Well, you can certainly finish your thought. Considering that it's 7:16, I think we'll go ahead and leave everything to a 3-minute limit going
I'm
forward.
very sorry. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that for the record, if anyone asks whether I'm in support of the proposal or not, I am in support of the proposal. I would hope that some of the changes that I suggested are taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Felder. At this time, I'm going to move on to public comments that were submitted to the board office via email. Registration was closed at 6:15 today. Any comments that were submitted after that time will be added to the record. First comment from community member Mrs. Wessel. As the owner of 43 Parkville Avenue, my tenants will be directly and adversely affected by this building were it to be built, as it is the blocked, making them feel totally locked in. There is a lot of noise from the trains running overhead. They do not need more noise in the backyard. I did not have an easy time renting a vacant apartment as is. I certainly do not want this building built in my backyard. Next comment is from community member Miriam Lang. I am the owner of 47 Parkville Avenue, and I'm vehemently against changing the zoning so that a 6-story building can be built. There is already an apartment building right next door to my house, and if a new 6-story building will be built in back of my house, I will be totally without light and air in the back inside of my house. This will close me in, and it will be extremely claustrophobic for me and my family. There is a reason for zoning laws in residential area. We have already have 2 schools in this area. Another school in the back will bring constant noise and never-ending buzzing and cars that our neighborhood was not built for. I do not agree to have this variance approved. It will bring much distress and darkness to people who own property on Parkville Avenue, which is on the other side of Lawrence Avenue. Please take this email into consideration. I'll do my best to attend the hearing on December 9th, as I'm very distressed about the situation. Next comment is from community member Suri Koplowitz. I am writing in support of Hadron Academy plans for expansion at 50 Lawrence Avenue. As a longtime neighbor residing close to the new proposed building, I hereby support this organization. I feel that it is serving an important need in the community. The next comment is from community member Miriam Prius. Yeah. And her comments are exactly the same as the previous community member. Next comment is from community member Yashar Richard. His comments are also in support and are the same as the previous 2 community members. Next comment is from community member David and Pessy Orlander. As the owners of 37 Parkville Avenue, we would like to register our complaint against the variance application for the construction of a 6-story building at 50 Lawrence Avenue, block 5422, lot 10. This property falls within the R5 Ocean Parkway zoning district and is known for its residential and quiet neighborhood. A 6-story building for autistic children, while an admirable undertaking, does not belong in a residential area. This type of school brings with it much noise, busing of children, honking, and closed streets, not to mention the many therapists and teachers competing with residents for parking. A building of this size will cast huge shadow over our house and the neighboring houses, and will block the air, light, and space that makes the houses on our block so exceptional. The airy, spacious light surrounding our house was one of the primary reasons we chose to buy this particular house, and to have the zoning changed to block this light is unacceptable. There is a reason for zoning laws in residential neighborhoods, and they should be respected, as residents have a right to be assured that these zoning laws will protect them from undesirable and inappropriate large buildings. Approving this variance notifies the residents that our rights will not be protected and zoning laws are meaningless. I hope this hearing is not just a formality and that the district has not already conceded our rights to the developers, but we will find should we find this to be the case, we will feel justified in retaining legal counsel in the matter. Next comment is from community member Bella Schoen. I am writing in support of Hadron Academy plans for expansion at 50 Lawrence Avenue. As a neighbor residing in the vicinity of the new proposed building, I hereby support this organization, which is serving such an important need in the community. Next comment is from community member Y. That's initial Y, last name Link. As a neighbor residing in the vicinity of the new proposed building, this community member's comments reflect the one just before this. Next comment is from community members Josephine and Hector Perez. I am the owner of 39 Parkville Avenue. This home has been in my family for the past 52 years. It has been brought to my attention that a 6-story school for autistic students will be built in front of my backyard. A 6-story building will bring many dynamic layers of problems to the community, as well as diminish the quality of life to me, my family, starting with. This will block out all natural light from my rear facade windows, whereby eliminating natural sunlight from entering the rooms, creating a very depressing atmosphere within all the rooms located on the rear side of 39 Parkville Avenue. This will drastically reduce the current market value of my property. An additional school this size will bring health and safety issues. More garbage leading to more rodents and pests, more foot traffic leading to crime and congestion, more noise from the students and bells. All further diminishing quality of life and property in a small residential community. In addition, this 6-story building will further diminish community diversification. Right now, my children cannot go to school in the community because we only have Bayes Yaakov Darav Mir High School for boys and Beth Jacob Day School Darav Mir for girls. We do not need another Jewish school. This sends the wrong cultural, religious, and political message and favors one religion, culture over all others. If we must have another school, it should not impose property devaluation to the residents, but it should be a charter school which would give other cultures a stakehold in the community as well. Please consider merging the 2 existing schools, thereby making room for a special needs school within one of the existing school structures. Reduce the proposed structure down to 2 stories instead of 6. The decision to continue with the development of this 6-story building for a religious-based special needs school would only create further division in the community. Next comment is from community member Israel Braunfeld. I do not object to a school opening there on the condition that they won't be building an event hall. The traffic and parking is very bad in this area, and building an event hall would only make things much worse. I understand the need to build schools, but that shouldn't be a green light to have a rentable space for events. If the plans call for a ballroom, then I do object. I would also agree on the condition that they install traffic lights at the corner. There's no way that kids and buses can come here without a traffic light. Next comment is from community member Yankee. I am writing on behalf of Hedron Academy regarding their plans for expansion of 50 Lawrence Avenue. As a neighbor residing in the vicinity of the new proposed building, I hereby give my full support for this outstanding organization that has been filling such a void in the community. And our last comment that was submitted from community member Chaim Bretter, Hedron's Academy extension plans at 50 Lawrence Avenue would be kindly accepted in the area, and it would be beneficial to have such an amazing agency as our neighbor. That concludes the comments that were sent via email to the board office. I want to focus on community members that are in attendance that have their hand up. I see Mr. Orlander is in attendance. Did you want to speak? And we have a 3-minute time limit. Thank you. Or Miss Orlander, I apologize. Go ahead. Bessie, yeah, did you want to speak? That being said, we have about 3 minutes. I'll take a question from Darlene Bowers, if we could make that a single question. That's board member Darlene Bowers.
I don't have a question.
Next would be board member Stephen Cohen. Please go ahead.
I guess it's a question for Sean, and that's how it's been mentioned a few times. The police station is really close, so I'm just wondering if the police station has weighed in on this at all.
No, they haven't.
Thank you.
The last question tonight is going to be from board member Glenn Wallen. Go ahead, Glenn, if you could keep it a single question.
Thank you. I just would like to clarify that this building seems that it's north of Parkville Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, then a lot of the comments about light and air they're south, so they're still going to get the sunlight. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
And there's a 30-foot rear yard after the first floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually wanted to give Zvi Plotzker an opportunity to ask his question. We haven't heard from him in a while. Go ahead, and this will be the last question tonight.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a few quick things. I'll try to make it very quick. Number one, what Mr. Wolin just said is very important to understand that if you take a look at the property, it appears to be on the northeast corner. Hence, there should not be a light issue with people that are to the south of that building. Number two, as far as a traffic light being instituted over there, that could be something that should be suggested. Also, being an institution that it is, I believe in the past we have learned that there's an as of right for that building unless we find various different issues that are problematic. And the last thing that I just wanted to point out was there has been, and I don't know where this has gone, Sean, maybe you know a little bit better, because there was a proposal to suggest for the police station a property on Nostrand Corner Avenue I, and I don't know if anything fell through or went from there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, do you want me to address that last question?
Yes, go ahead.
The Office of Management and Budget has greenlighted a site search for the relocation of the police precinct. That I don't know how far along the site search is. We can circle back to NYPD Capital to see how active that site search is. Regardless, even if NYPD locates a site and everything goes out to bid and the precinct is capitalized, you're probably talking about, a decade-ish away, and that's best case scenario.
Right. I say thank you very much for that update, because that would alleviate maybe possibly some of the issues that the school may be having if we can reduce some of the traffic from that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back to Senator Felder and make sure that all of your thoughts were heard. If there's anything else that you wanted to say before I get a recommendation from this board.
No, thank you very much. I have nothing else to say.
All right, thank you. So it is 7:29. We need to bring a recommendation to the full board at our meeting next Monday. So we'll bring this variance to a vote for the board members in attendance here. And your comments will be brought before the board as well. I think I guess we'll vote again in reverse. If Anya, if you could make note of everyone is here and we can have a count. And I just for the record want to enter that of the comments from the public that were received, we had 6 community members in support, 4 were opposed, and 3 did not offer any position. So with regards to the board members here and this variance, is there any board member here that does not recommend approving this variance?
Joe Dweck, I recommend not approving the variance.
VARIANCE, I recommend not approving it.
This is Darlene Bowers. I recommend not approving it.
Any board members abstaining from voting? I'm abstaining.
I'll abstain.
I'm abstaining, Gail Smith.
Barton abstaining.
Greg Alvarez abstaining.
Mel Brunson abstain.
Ann Gaudette abstain.
Anyone here ineligible to vote? So, Anya, do you have a count of where we are with this the vote? Because if this board is not recommending this variance, then we might want to consider putting conditions.
Am I correct that we had 4 abstentions? Greg Alvarez, Gail Smith, Barton Prasant, and Ann Godette? Did anyone else?
Michelle.
Brunson abstain.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Michelle Brunson, I abstain.
Thank you. Okay,
Alvin Burke, I abstain.
thank you, Alvin.
So, ostensibly, abstentions are no votes. So how many abstentions with no votes do we have versus how many yes votes?
Correct. At this point, I have 9 abstentions and no votes, which leaves, Joanne, you also abstained, correct? I'm sorry.
Yes.
10 abstentions or no votes, which leaves only, sorry, I'm seeing 1. Perhaps you should call for yes votes. I'm only seeing Svi Plotzker.
Okay.
I don't need to name names. If we could call for yes votes as
Yes,
well.
if we can. So I'd like to have some, each individual person voting yes, please unmute yourself and vote yes and state your name.
Nina Sabgir, yes.
Steve Cohen, yes.
Glenn Wolin, yes.
So that's 3.
Okay, so at this
Well,
point,
I think
see
4.
4?
Yes, I see 4 yeses. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 10 abstentions or no votes. That's what I see at this point.
Are there any board members that want to offer conditions that might improve this recommendation?
May I read in? I was keeping notes of the specifics of the objections and suggestions. Would it be helpful for me to echo them back to the board?
Yes, thank you.
There was a request to move the parking restriction to the McDonald Avenue side of the building, the 7A to 7P school day restrictions instead of Lawrence. There was there was concerns about the shadowing, which maybe have been dissuaded by some of the comments made by board members with some knowledge of north, south, east, and west. But sometimes this board does request setbacks at the higher floors. And then there was a request, this is maybe self-serving, to confirm that bus, shuttle, and drop-off routes encourage the use of Seton to Lawrence or McDonald in order to keep all traffic off of Lawrence Avenue east of Seton Place. And then, I'm sorry, in addition to potentially conditioning on setbacks, there could be a request for shadowing studies, which is a practice of this board, a precedent set by the board in previous hearings. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Do any of those 4 conditions change some of the no votes or the abstentions?
No.
I would, if we were adding conditions, I would change my vote to yes. But reading the room and seeing that those 4 conditions are not swaying this body.
I would also change my vote.
Okay.
Particularly if the no parking regulations are shifted to McDonald Avenue.
Change my vote, Joe Dweck.
That would change your vote? Okay. Anya, sorry. I'm sorry. Joe, was that you?
Yes, Joanne, I apologize. I repeat, would not change my vote.
Thank you. I'm just looking for responses of people who would change their vote. And right now that's Alvin and myself.
Madam Chair, is what we're saying about changing the vote for those people who voted against it, stating that all 4 items need to be addressed, or only some of those items, or one of those items, et cetera, number 1. Number 2, according to the numbers we just mentioned, that there were 5 yes and 10 no. I'm not sure, does that say that we have a quorum this evening?
Well, this is a recommendation. We're voting. We're extrapolating our recommendation to the full board. So I'm trying to get a sense that how we're going to present this to the full board. So what I see happening right here is that the variance as it was presented to us was 15 board members, 15 board members were present, 5 were in favor of the plan as it is, and the rest of the group either said no or abstained. When presented with 4 conditions, that number went from 7 to in favor of recommending to the full board, and 8 remaining in their position, which is a no or an abstention. So this is how it will be reported out.
Thank you.
Sean, does that sound accurate to you?
Yes, and just for the record, there is quorum for a public hearing. We do meet the quorum requirement for this public hearing.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please? This is Ann Gaudette.
Yes, go ahead.
So thank you, Joanne. So concerning the vote at this public hearing, would this be presented at the full board meeting? And then if there is further interest from members who have not been able for reasons to attend this public hearing, would it be able to be brought forward and perhaps discussed and reconsidered at that time?
The only so at the general meeting, when we discuss this public hearing, board members will be able to ask questions. We will not be having another presentation on the matter. We will be reporting out what the variance was, and we can summarize what the public support was, and we will report out exactly how the board voted in terms of their recommendation here today. But there will not be another presentation. So if there are questions from the board members who could not attend, we will answer them the best that we can.
So it will be presented, but there will not be a second vote taken at the public hearing, is my question, after discussion.
There will not be a presentation from the applicant at the general meeting. So that's to answer your first question. Board members can ask questions about the project. The public may not at the general meeting. And then we will report out what the recommendation is. And I'll report out that the recommendation was twofold, that without conditions, the vote was this, and with conditions, the vote was this.
Okay, but that's not, please forgive me, that's not really the fullness of the question. In previous, on other issues, there's been recommendations that have come out of the committee that were reversed at the public meeting, the board meeting, the general board meeting. So is that the case here, or is it just no?
No. The full board will vote. So if we have a quorum at the general meeting, the members in attendance will vote on this matter. This is just a recommendation. So the members in attendance tonight are by and large not in favor of recommending this to the board. The board can decide, all 47 members in attendance, that they are in favor of the variance. So that's how this will work. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much, Joanne.
Okay. If there's no other questions or delays, Sean, do you have anything you want to address? Otherwise, I will end this public hearing.
No, I think it's covered. I don't know if it's been clear that to carry a vote, the yeses have to be in the majority, so abstentions count as no votes. And so maybe just to restate what the recommendation would be, if the majority of board members present, including the abstentions, are no's, then it would be, the recommendation, I believe, would be a recommendation to not approve unless conditions were met. Does that? I just think that the recommendation that's going before the full board needs to be articulated tonight.
So the recommendation of this board with no conditions was by majority a no, and that includes the abstentions. When the board members in attendance here were offered 4 conditions. There was some change, but still majority of board members in attendance recommended to say no, even with those 4 conditions present. Does that sound right? Okay.
Jives with me, board members?
Yeah, may I suggest that, what do you call, when you said that a majority, it's only by one vote. It's an 8-7, according to what you said earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Plasker. No, I will be more articulate when we go to the general meeting. I will describe the numbers.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Okay, I want to thank everyone here. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much.
This public hearing is now concluded at 7:42. We are going to go directly into the Bylaws Committee.
What is it?
So
I'm in
feel
a
free
meeting.
to hang around. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm out of batteries, guys.
I was just.
Have a good evening.
I was just listening to the.
Thank you. Joanne, we should hold.
If you're not staying for the Bylaws Committee meeting, feel free to leave this call. If you are, stay on. I'm going to excuse myself for 1 minute, and Steve Cohen is going to be chairing this meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold as long as my battery lasts. Thank you so much.
And Steve, since we were slightly delayed, I think you should feel free to open the meeting as soon as you are ready, set, and able to go.
Okay, Anya, can you set me up to share my screen?
I was just going to tell you, I just made you the presenter, so you should have that availability, but take a look.
Yeah, looks good. Okay. Okay. So with that, we can move on to the bylaws. Let me outline what I think we'll do tonight. And thanks everyone for hanging around. It's a late start for us. I know we're used to going 2 hours. I don't think we'll go 2 hours tonight, but appreciate everyone hanging around after a long public hearing. So thank you for that. My plan for tonight, I received a markup from Alvin Burke, who was kind enough to submit some edits. So I think the first thing will be to walk through Alvin's proposed edits and comments, and just make sure either we agree with them or have discussion off of them. Then if we get through all that, there were, I think, 3 other things that were flagged, one by Florencia, one by Melissa Minich, I believe, in the last, in one of the recent board meetings, and one that I wanted to flag based on some comments that have been made since. So hopefully you guys can see the screen. So just going from the top, I think this first edit that Alvin included, adding the word "or," so I'll read it out. I think basically Alvin caught a typo where the word "or" was missing, and so I'm hoping this won't be controversial. The chairperson shall send a letter to any appointed board member after that member has been absent without valid excuse from 2 consecutive board meetings or their assigned topical committee meetings, or after that member has been absent without valid excuse from 4 board meetings during the September through June board session. So before it was missing an "or," and this is in section membership, Article 3, Section B, number 3. So assuming no one takes issue with that or has any counter proposal for how to change the language there, we can move on. But feel free to speak up. Let me change my view so I can see if there's anyone has their hand raised. Alvin, do you have your hand raised?
I did for a moment. I was simply going to comment that it's very hard to move a meeting ahead without an or.
Steve, I was going to say, if you want to keep your view steady, I'd be happy to look for hands raised if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But I would also like if Alvin keeps quipping.
No objection to that. All right. So with that, then I guess a few sections down, Alvin is proposing clarifying that folks who identify a conflict of interest declare they're not eligible to vote with the full board on such matters. Before it just said they're not eligible to vote on such matters. So Alvin is proposing adding vote with the full board. So the sentence would now read, any board member participating in the board's consideration of a matter involving self-serving or conflict of interest shall identify such interest and shall declare that they are not eligible to vote with the full board on such matters. That seems fine with me. I don't know if anyone wants to weigh in on the language there. If not, we can move on. This does get a little more substantive going down. Then under duties of the chairperson, the last, I guess this applies to duties of the chairperson and duties of the vice chairpersons. It's the same comment. Because the last provision under those duties is to serve as an ex officio member of each committee except for the nominating committee. And Alvin's asking as a voting or non-voting committee member. I had always assumed that if you show up, you can vote as on each committee, but I'm not sure if that's being confused here because of the ex officio designation. So I'm not sure, Alvin, if you wanted to speak more about that, or if anyone has any thoughts pertaining to that, if we should do some sort of language cleanup here.
I would appreciate some clarification on this. I'm not quite following it.
Sure. So this is under duties of chairperson and duties of vice chairperson.
Yeah,
so
I can see it.
Yeah. The last duty is to serve as an ex officio member of each committee except for the nominating committee. So I think what Alvin is,
but I don't understand the purpose of the adding language.
I think Alvin's just asking the question, are they a voting member of each committee or non-voting member of each committee? I think that's
Let me respond, Glenn.
Sure, go ahead.
Often, people see ex officio and assume that it means non-voting. I just wanted to avoid any confusion about that. I think the ex officio members should have the right to vote. That's it.
And Steve, if this helps, I have my hand up, so I'm calling on me. If this helps, the charter names our overlapping council members as ex officio members of the board, but stipulates that they are non-voting members of our board. So if we're looking to precedent, that might be a guideline.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess, from my standpoint, it seems odd to not let the chairperson or vice chairpersons vote at a committee meeting. So I don't know if we wanted to go the other way here. That would be my thinking. It's not. I'm glad Alvin flagged the issue because it's not something I'd thought about previously. But I assume in general that when we've had topical committee meetings and there's some sort of vote, that if the chairperson or vice chairpersons are present, that they can vote, and that's been the practice. So I would assume we'd want to continue that, but if there's feeling otherwise, I'm more than willing to hear it.
I think everybody present should have the right to vote. All community board members.
Right.
Thank
No other hands are raised.
So I'm happy to change it to serve as an ex officio member.
As an ex officio voting member.
I'm fine with that. All right. My red lines aren't going to be visible as edits because I'm only showing Alvin's edits at the moment. So, but trust me, we can change the view later. Okay. So I agree with Sean's suggestion there. I think that's consistent with current practice. Barden, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to maybe add a little bit of comfort to this, I'm just looking up in Robert's Rules of Orders online. It says, without exception, ex officio members of boards and committees have exactly the same rights and privileges as do all other members, including, of course, the right to vote.
Okay, great. Thanks for
I didn't even know you
clarifying
could get that online.
I should have definitely taken. I was in chairing this committee. I became way too reliant on my former co-chair Jonathan Judge, who was the Roberts Rules guy. So I should definitely be looking up the Roberts Rules more than I do. Okay. The next provision that Alvin added a question. So this is in Article 5, Section A. So in order to be eligible for election, all nominees must have served on the board at least since the preceding calendar year and be eligible to serve on the board the following year. So Alvin's asking since when during the last calendar year. Right now we're just saying they had to have served on the board since at least since the preceding calendar year. Should we clarify that at least since the entire preceding calendar year?
Or should they have served a year in case there's a midterm appointment? I think the point of this was to make sure that each board member to be eligible has a year of service under her or his belt. And so maybe not putting calendar, but should have served as a board member for at least one calendar year.
Okay. I like that. Any other comments or thoughts? But I think that's a good solution, clarifying. Alvin, do you have your hand up still?
Oh, that's satisfactory. That's a good suggestion, Sean made.
Okay, great. Okay, moving right along. So now we get into the regional committees, which was the hang up in the last time we met. So I guess the first thing in the regional committees, this is about I guess the locations for the regional committees. Alvin's asking if Ditmas Park and Ditmas Park West would be okay with how we're defining the regional committees, and also noted that the borders should be double checked. I hope that the borders, as I wrote them for each of the regions 1 through 4, are correct.
I double checked them again based on the information that I sent you and the map, and they are correct.
Okay. So I guess the question about Ditmas Park and Ditmas Park West, I mean, we've discussed the regional committees on generally in at least 2 meetings before. So I don't know if there are other thoughts about this proposed regional committee structure. If anyone wants to weigh in.
I don't know. I don't know what the intent of sort of shopping this around to a variety of neighborhood associations would be, because it really impacts the inner workings of the board and more like the nominating committee than it does in terms of the voice of the people or service delivery or representation from throughout the district. So I'm not sure why we would check with those two groups and not every other, or why we would check with organized neighborhood associations and not block association, you know, or tenants associations. That it just sort of worries me that those are the two identified as who to check
If it
with.
was for me, I would have taken the raspberry because I like.
Florencia? There she goes.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I mean, I guess if I understood previously, the concern seemed to be that, you know, we were taking the area south of the Long Island Railroad border, which was 2 regions, and now under this new proposal, it would be 1 region. So I just want to make sure we're still okay with that. As far as this committee is concerned, based on the way, I guess, you know, Joanne made a compelling showing that in terms of a more equitable distribution, this regional alignment made more sense. But, you know, I know this was, the regional committee seemed to be the thing that gave the full board the most pause, or at least that was expressed the most at the last meeting. So should we just go back with the same structure, or does anyone have any additional thoughts? I'm fine. I'm fine moving forward with it, but you know, I do know that we did have discussion about it at the last board meeting when this came up.
I mean, I'm still fine with it, and it still makes sense in terms of, you know, balancing out the numbers, especially on the west side of the district versus the east side of the district. 27 members in one region versus 12, 4, and 5 in other regions.
Okay.
I think Joanne's proposal is fine, as long as we revisit it periodically in case the distribution changes.
Right, and we added that language. So yeah, that's something we've talked about. Okay. All right, so I think we can move on then, unless anyone else wants to weigh in. I think the next thing was.
Just curious, one thing. Can I
Yeah,
jump
go ahead.
in?
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. So are we going to just move past the language and wait to see how it's fleshed out? Because the interval of, you know, the idea of opening the bylaws committee to vote on that as the distribution changes, I don't know. Do you want to capture that in a separate?
Do you want me to read the language? Do you want me to read the language we came up with before?
Sure, please.
Okay.
I'm on a handset. I don't have a computer in front of me.
I understand.
I have no board to read off of.
Yeah, so the language that we came up with was, you know, after defining the regional committees, the board should review from time to time, in consultation with the Department of City Planning, the borders of the regions in order to ensure a reasonable distribution of board members within those regions and to ensure transparency and objectivity. So that's how it reads right now.
So would it be beneficial, do you think, to discuss it in a distribution? The idea of, was it equity, or what was the word that was in there?
Transparency and objectivity?
So yes, but could we say in an effort to have all sections within the district more fairly evenly represented? Something to that effect.
I guess we're saying ensure a reasonable distribution of board members. So you want to say something about equitable, or numerical?
No.
Okay.
It's just that if in subsequent community city council appointments that are confirmed by the borough president, in addition to ones that he or she going forward may make. So you could wind up with a huge allocation in 1/4 of the district that wasn't mentioned or that has not been so enfranchised. So it's more about the need, trying to reduce the need to reconvene an entire bylaws revision, but to make an allowance for an equitable distribution or a more, I think the word is equitable, distribution across of community board members within the district, within those confines, which may mean that the confines have to change. Like you're changing the.
That's always an option. The board always has an option to open up a bylaws review of just a single section. And so if the need did impose itself on this board in the future to review only the regional committee section, somebody could make a motion to do that very focused, limited review.
Okay, would it be wise? Well, okay, that's fine. So leave it at that. That's fine. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Anne. So if we're good with that, the next section is further down in committee, section 6, or sorry, Article 6, section C3. So I think this is Alvin wordsmithing. So the sentence he modified. The chairperson shall assign members to the topical committees, giving consideration to committee size and the member stated committee preferences. Okay, so he did add giving consideration to committee size in addition to members stated committee preferences. So I think that's a good change. I'm assuming that's non-controversial. So we can hopefully move on there. Okay. The next one is regarding the committee of the whole, and Alvin is suggesting that we're at the June board meeting where there's the motion to establish a committee of the whole, clarifying that it's the chairperson who can make the motion. The chairperson shall make a motion, but also a designee can make a motion as well. So changing the language to at the June board meeting, the chairperson or designee shall make a motion to establish a committee of the whole. That seems fine and non-controversial as well. But if anyone has any objection, feel free to speak up. I think this next one is just, yeah, I don't think we have to discuss that. That's just moving the word current around. We will come back to that provision later, though. That's about defining the quorum. I think that's it for Alvin's comments and edits. So if that's the case, I'll change the view so that you can see everything that we've done. So this is about to turn into a major red line, bear with me. So restore my edits. Okay. So I tried to flag the 3 items using comments. So hopefully they'll be easy to spot. Although I think I originally went past the first one. Okay, so the first thing that was flagged was by Florencia, and this is under duties of chairperson, and it's provision F, to state and put to a vote all questions or resolutions which are to be moved or which necessarily arise in the course of the board's business, and announce the result of the vote. Florencia is suggesting we remove necessarily, which seems fine to me, or which arise in the course of the board's business. That seems like a sensible change. So I will make it unless if anyone opposes. I don't hear any opposition. So that's number 1. Then so we have the, oh, I think the next one was the quorum definition that Melissa raised. So let me find that. Okay. So Melissa raised the issue that the way we define the quorum under meetings is it's a little unclear because we seem to be offering two different definitions or two definitions. A quorum to convene any regular meeting shall be the majority of current members of the board and is defined as set forth by the administrative code and or the city charter. My thinking is to just kind of move things around and just say a quorum as set forth by the administrative code and or the city charter shall be the majority of current members of the board. I took a look and that seemed to line up. So a quorum to convene any regular meeting as defined, as set forth by the administrative code and or the city charter shall be the majority of current members of the board. Because I think that alleviates the concern there. And
Well, if I might jump
yeah,
in
go
here.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
When you say regular meeting, what we just had could be considered a regular meeting, and we didn't need 26 people to call it a quorum. I think we
No,
just.
no, regular meetings are defined. Sorry, regular meetings are defined as our regular monthly board meetings.
Okay, so
yeah, there's a separate quorum requirement for
no,
other
I
meetings.
understand. I'm just saying that under this particular language, keep moving it around to a regular monthly meeting as opposed to just adding the word monthly in there to clarify.
Well, the provisions on it's labeled as regular meetings. So right above it, we define regular meetings. There should be at least one regular meeting of the board each month, except that no regular meeting shall be scheduled during the months of July and August.
All right. Okay. Okay. I see it.
Okay. All right. So hopefully that addresses Melissa's concern there. I don't see any hands up. So I think the last thing I had, and this came out of actually, this is like a meta concern because this was raised with regard to amending the bylaws themselves. In the process of drafting the amendment section, we have a provision that any amendment proposal shall be reviewed by the executive committee prior to being presented to the full board. I just wanted to flag that because I think I had said, oh, that's something we should do here. And there was pushback like that would be an unnecessary step. So I just wanted to flag that provision just to see if that should be kept in or not, because there seemed to be resistance to doing so for this round of the bylaws process. So if we think it's not appropriate here, I don't know why we would include that language as an extra step. Sean, I think it might have been a reaction of yours that prompted that from me. So I'm not sure if you wanted to weigh in there.
No, I don't. I defer to you.
Okay.
I don't see. I mean, we took it to the full board, and people had a lot of questions. Not everybody read it, et cetera, and they made comments, and that's why we're reconvening. To add an extra step doesn't seem to add any extra value. So I'm all for taking out that sentence.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just that it's just because especially because there might be this is we're thinking now in terms of the process where we have this like overarching amendment process where we're going through the whole bylaws. But if it's just something to change a specific provision or a tiny thing, why waste time having to go before the executive committee first and then before presenting to the full board. So I think we should have enough faith going forward that the special committee can do its job to with regards to the bylaws, and we don't need the executive committee to kind of be there as a backstop or middle management, or if you will.
It's not the practice of any other committee. Every other committee can make its
Yeah.
recommendation directly to the board.
Okay.
But I will say, and maybe Joanne wants to jump in instead of me, but there is a plan to talk about this at an upcoming executive committee meeting between the January and February meeting, just to talk about implementation with changes that will require implementation. There will be an opportunity to discuss how it will unfold. So it does seem like the chair can always exercise a prerogative to call an executive committee meeting to talk about any aspect of a bylaws change.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so I'll take it out. It seemed like not something that when we were talking about this section, I don't think that was something that was folks felt especially strongly about. It's just something that I think worked its way in and was kept there. But I think based on the feedback I've heard and am hearing, that it should come out. All right, so that's all I've got. So that sounds good. That we'll have to I guess take this up at a future executive committee meeting and discuss implementation, because I guess now that we're mid-year, the question, there's obviously questions about if we change the topical committee structure and all that. So that sounds good, and I'll be happy to report at the next regular meeting that we made some additional changes based on additional feedback, and we still feel pretty good about this. So so thanks everyone. I'm not sure if anyone else has any comments before we call it an evening.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify how we're gonna address this at the board meeting on Monday. And that's a process thing. Are we gonna send out this new version tomorrow with the expectation that people will review the changes? Maybe we can send it out with, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not quite sure how you want to address this Monday. And I think Sean and I were thinking that we should call for a vote on them on Monday. And if there's still questions or concerns, give people until the February meeting to review again and then call for another vote. How does this committee feel about moving forward with a vote on Monday?
I'm all for it, because everyone has had an opportunity to review it and discuss it at a regular monthly meeting. And now they'll have another opportunity to read it. I think you should call for a vote, and unless there's any objections, finalize this.
And that was my thinking. That was Sean's thinking. And then the executive committee will meet about implementation. Regardless, I mean, whether there's more changes that have to happen and this goes to February for another vote, the executive committee will still meet to plan implementation based on this. This is one of our agenda items.
Joanne, that sounds good. Steve, are you able to send this around at some point tonight, so over the weekend people have their weekend reading, so that they have an opportunity at least to review it? So that
I'll make sure to send this to
yeah.
to the office right after the meeting ends.
Best news. That'd be great. Thank you. I think we should call for a vote.
Great, thank you.
That sounds good. I think the biggest logistical thing, if these minutes get approved, is what to do about the topical committees midstream. But yeah, sounds good. All right. Any other hands up? You good to call this one? All right. Well, thanks everyone. Very much appreciated hanging around after that public hearing. Thanks to everyone who's come to multiple of these. I think I've lost count. We might be up to our 7th or 8th meeting now. But thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, I'll be happy to report out on Monday, and we'll go from there. Have a good night.
Big
Great
hand to you,
work,
Steve. That was a lot of work. Yeah, good job.
Yes, great work.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Hi, thanks, everybody.
And Godette.
Good night.
Has left.